African leaders have called on Russia to release grain supplies from Ukraine following the collapse of the Black Sea grain deal. The African Union chairperson, Azali Assoumani, spoke during the second Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg, Russia. This comes even as Russian President Vladimir Putin announced free supplies of between 25,000 to 50,000 tons of grain to Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, Central African Republic and Eritrea. Betty Kiptum is attending the summit and brings us the following report.
As the second Russia-Africa summit kicked off in St. Petersburg, Russia, top of the agenda for African leaders was the collapsed grain deal that Russia pulled out of, leading to a stoppage of grain export from Ukraine. The deal, drawn up in early 2022, was to ensure continued shipment of grain from Ukraine despite the ongoing conflict. Russia, however, terminated the deal last week, a decision that means security guarantees for ships navigating the Black Sea have been withdrawn. African heads of state, through the African Union chairperson, Azali Assoumani, did not mince words, demanding that Russia release grain from both Ukraine and Russia for the sake of its people.
The resolution of this crisis could save a lot of lives that depend on food supplies. Currently, our continent is significantly affected by food prices. That is why we call on all participants to this process. Please ease the supplies of both Russian and Ukrainian grain to our countries. We are ready to cooperate with Russia in all areas and all sectors in order to ensure peace and security on the continent.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russia is keen to supply the deficit with a view of increasing grain exports between Africa and Russia. In the coming 4 months, Russia will supply grain to 6 African countries for free.
We refused to further extend the deal. I've said that our country is ready to make up for the Ukrainian grain, both on commercial basis and free of charge, to those countries in Africa that are in dire need, especially since we expect a record high harvest this year. That in the near months, 3-4 months, we would be ready to provide to Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, the Central African Republic and Eritrea. We would be ready to supply 50,000 tons of grain to each. We'll ensure free shipping of this cargo.
Trade between Africa and Russia in 2022 grew by 10% to $6.7 billion and is projected to grow a further 16% in H1 2023. The collapse of the grain deal between Russia and Ukraine means that Africa, and Kenya included, is going to have to brace for higher costs of living, especially the cost of grain, including wheat that we access from Ukraine. Today, the African leaders have not minced their words, saying that Russia should release the grain from Ukraine and Russia as well to ensure that lives of millions of people who depend on this grain are saved. Reporting from St. Petersburg in Russia, I'm Betty Kiptum.